Welcome to the Euphyllia Coral Care video by FragTrade. So, Euphyllia are distributed across the Indo-Pacific, Japan, East China Sea and Southeast Asia. These stunning corals provide a reef with a variety of coloured tentacles in different shapes and structures. The two structures are wall formations, where the structure expands to longer formations. There's the branching structures, which is what you will most commonly see across the aquarium industry. So there are four different formations of Euphyllia traded across the aquarium industry. So that is torch corals to start off with. So torch corals are known as Euphyllia glabrescens, and these corals are a single tip and a large, long tentacle with sometimes two or three sweeper tentacles that can grow to double, if not triple, the size of the standard tentacles. Now, torch corals come in a variety of different colours, including greens, purples, like the one in the video here, and also sometimes orange and gold. Now, those are very rare and very sought after corals. Now, moving on to the type of Euphyllia, we are talking about hammer corals. Now, hammer corals are a perfect starter Euphyllia coral. Now, this is because they're incredibly hardy, specifically under high nitrate conditions, and they are just fast growing generally. So, hammers are known as Euphyllia ancora in Latin. Now, moving on past hammer corals, which we have like a variety of greens and purples, but they are generally greens hammers, or sometimes reverse hammers as well. We can move on to Euphyllia diversia. Now, Euphyllia diversia is better known as frog spawn coral. Now, frog spawn coral has multiple little heads. So multiple tiny little specks on the end of the tentacles, and very large tentacles again, often green still. Sometimes purple euphyllias are present as well. Now, Euphyllia diversia, you can also get a different type of coral known to frog spawn coral, which is known as octospawn. Now, octospawn basically is very slightly different. It's somewhat argued always when there's an octospawn around if it is a frog spawn, but generally they have smaller, tiny little specked tops on the tentacles, and the actual tips of the tentacles do actually somewhat differ in colour from half of the coral to the other half of the coral. So that's generally what's going on with the Euphyllia diversia. Now, if we're going to talk about Euphyllia corals in terms of care level, I would definitely suggest hammers for the beginners of the Euphyllia, and then I would suggest moving on to your frog spawns, and then the torch corals are more or less of the same care level as your frog spawns. So, due to their wonderful tentacle structures that vary species to species, these corals do actually need a fair amount of flow and movement so that their tentacles can be moved back and forth in order to be filter fed. So when I'm talking about flow, I generally say moderate to low flow for the hammers and the frog spawn species, whereas here at FragTrade we do say that torch corals do actually prefer the higher flow, so like moderate to high flow, get them right by that power head and get them high up on the reef as well. They really are a feature piece. So yeah, that just comes on to my next point, which is to place Euphyllia in the mid to higher sections of your reef. If we're going to talk about lighting, we would say that medium lighting is more or less where you want to be with Euphyllia. So that's anywhere between 60 and 150 par, but they do also like the higher lighting as well. so they are more than happy to be above 150 par, but you may bleach their tentacles, so it's something to watch out for. Now, finally, last but not least, we are going to talk about the water quality, in which here we aim to keep at FragTrade. So first of all, our salinity is 1.026, and our calcium is 420 to 500 ppm. Moving on, magnesium is around about 1350 to 1420 ppm, especially with euphilia, as euphilia love to guzzle down magnesium. It's used in order for the tentacles to actually be able to sting and be incredibly motile as well. Now, in terms of your KH, euphilia do prefer the higher levels of KH, not as much as SPS, around about the 10 level. We'd probably recommend that the KH would be at around about 9, just to suitify the mixed reef lovers. Now, nextly, phosphates are always something that euphilias are not a fan of, so therefore 0.05 to 0.08 ppm is an absolute must, whilst nitrates it is always best to keep it between 4 and 8 ppm, but like I said, hammers, they can generally do around about 15 ppm at an absolute top, but your torches and your frog spawns would not be happy in those situations. So that is everything here about the water quality we keep at FragTrade. So if you have any questions, then please do comment on the video below, and most of all, keep on fragging with FragTrade. Thank you.